shutting down.
Oh no, it's shutting down. Why'd you shut it down? I was gonna take it apart while it's still on.
Really?
Not really. Okay, let's crack this beast open.
I can't believe it has to shut down.
You don't want to put it in the slot again, Steve?
You know what I bet it is?
Oh, we can put it in the spot.
I bet you it's a Raspberry Pi. It is.
We're gonna find out what in the world we actually paid for in this thing.
That's gotta be what it is.
Are you starting recording now, or did you restart?
Oh, it's already recording. So what we're gonna do is, obviously the screws are underneath these little rubber doodles.
Where'd you put your phone?
Right here on the shelf.
Oh, okay, good.
So right here we got our 4 screws. They are Phillips. Fun part's gonna be getting these off without damaging them, because nobody wants to truly destroy this thing.
I want to destroy it.
Except for some horrible, horrible people on the internet that want to have death threats sent to their inbox and somebody possibly showing up with a shotgun at their house to kill them. So we got one guy who says it's probably a Raspberry Pi. What's the other guy voting over here?
That's what I think it is, too.
I'm hoping it's something that's Nintendo proprietary, or, well, at least Nintendo built and not just...
Well, the operating
Well, they usually do off-the-shelf parts, so it could be a Raspberry Pi. Nintendo is notorious for using off-the-shelf components that aren't proprietary components for their hardware. They don't make their own hardware for a lot of the stuff. So, let's see. What do we got inside this thing? Well, that actually looks pretty nice in there, to be honest.
It really does.
Let's unplug this ribbon cable that goes up to the
CPU
power
fan?
connections. Well, let's see if it's even warm. It's barely lukewarm to the touch. You can see we got our 2 port connectors, which means this board is actually somewhat of a proprietary build. Now we'll just see if we can figure out what in the world the processor actually is.
It's an ARM.
Yeah, who knows?
I guarantee it's an ARM.
Hopefully it's at least pretty nice looking underneath this plate. I suspect that it's actually a pretty decent build, just by what I see here already.
I don't know why they put that plate on there.
This is your thermal spreader, most likely.
So you think there's heat
There's
going on
probably,
there?
I would call it not heat goo, but there's probably a heat pad, thermal pad crammed in there. Yeah, I gotta have a heating pad in there, make sure that CPU gets nice and cuddly and warm. Really not much entertaining inside the case.
It's just
Really not that entertaining on the bottom side of the board either.
it's just a fucking
We at least,
board with an HDMI port on it.
we actually have a fuse to the HDMI port, surprisingly. No fuse coming in from the power connector from what I can see on this side. Oh wait, yes we do. We do have a fuse right here for the power connection. Fuse for the HDMI. We have our lovely 6.3 volt capacitor at 470 farad, it looks like.
Well, let's see how well it takes a hammer hit.
No, we're not going to murder this thing. We actually have an R16 chip. Not 100% sure if you can see it on camera. Yep, there we go, R16 chip.
Let me see R16 chip. Interesting.
We have an onboard NAND, which is permanent. It does have some sort of USB data capabilities, at least for schematics wise. I have no idea if we're actually going to be able to update this thing or modify it in any way. Go ahead and get a better look at some of these board numbers if we can. A little disappointed in it, but it's overall a pretty good build. It looks like they have a fuse for the controller port. At least one of them anyways. I can't guarantee it's for both.
I freaking love it so far.
Seriously, it actually looks like they only put in one fuse
But it's just
for the controller port, and it's a 0, so it's more of a fusible link.
oh, laser blaster. Good
So if you short this thing out, you will probably burn it up.
It was fun when I played it
Like I was like so
Look at that.
to buy it, but
Oh, made in China.
DLC for free.
This is not Nintendo, it's Chinese.
So I was like, okay, since they're gonna be nuts.
It's still a really good build. The HDMI port
I almost bought Battlefield 1.
is a somewhat durable design. I wouldn't call it the best. It's your standard cell phone USB port.
Battlefield 1.
One of the craptacular ones. It'll probably break off in no time
Battlefield.
if you actually take this with you.
The third.
I think it would be kind of cool to make this thing mobile. Go through and hook a little tiny screen to it, hook a battery pack to it. Got the controller, mount it in some fashion, make it a portable system. Definitely doable. Now we're gonna pull the controller open.
When they're open over there,
Where?
the little
No.
shop.
He has
So the overall look of the controller looks pretty decent. Looks factory
I believe.
original to the
I don't see anything.
I mean, in all honesty, he usually shows up between
Super Nintendo controller that was released back when the Super Nintendo first came out.
But I honestly have no idea. He's just a.
Seems
guy
pretty
who runs
decent.
that business. He has multiple businesses, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Literally every screw in this thing is straight up Phillips. There is no warranty seals. There's nothing to prevent you from taking it apart, putting it back together. The controller looks to be a decent build. It looks like it's wired as if it's a USB controller. Go ahead and take the bumpers out. Take the membranes out. They are spot on for factory original era components. The membranes are actually really nice, really well done. Circuitry looks really, really professional.
I hope so. It's Nintendo.
I'd say the controller itself is actually pretty nice.
I think I'm just going
Go ahead and get a little better look at the board numbers here.
they could have done better.
Take a look at the
I guess not.
the chip.
Still a hot item.
Yeah. I know. I'm just
So
skeptical about this.
definitely not a bad build. It's definitely, yeah, you got what you paid for $80. It's definitely not like no $200, $300 system. But you know, there's going to be people who are going to pay that much. I'm not going to think anything low of them if they have to pay that much to get it, because it is a cool thing to have. It is a nice system to have, because a lot of people have trouble hooking up these older systems to their shiny brand new TV that only has, well, HDMI, or the composite is basically omitted from their unit, so they have trouble hooking them up. This one hooks up flawlessly. You just plug it straight in, you're good to go. So we'll go ahead and cram this thing back together, and should be good to go. And before I cram the system back together, lovely little blue thermal pad. This is your thermal spreader slash interference shielding. Not a bad construction.
Are they actually making their own?
So we'll go ahead and just cram this thing back together.
I don't know how they're gonna survive though.
At this point, if you don't want to finish watching the video, go ahead and jump to something else.
They got an Xbox and PS4 to compete with, and I guess the Switch. I feel like the Nintendo's keeping it.
Kind of feel like I'd like to add a fan into this thing.
No, Atari, new Atari.
But
I can't remember what they call it. It's-
based on the chip, it'd probably be ridiculous. It's probably would run perfectly fine without even having the thermal pad and the plate.
Much more than just
Let the manufacturer put it in there to be sure that the chip does not
no card.
overheat. To be honest, I would love to be able to hack this thing and throw on the All-Stars ROM. Ooh, looks like we have an assembly problem here. One button is not functioning. Feels a little extra spongy, so I have a feeling the piece kinked over on me.
Yeah, dude, all they gotta do.
This is why uncertified personnel should never really have a screwdriver near anything like this,
You know?
because they put it back together, they force it shut, they break it.
It's all.
In the case of me, I check it and make sure
And they fucked it up.
it's still just, I don't know, it
I took time out.
isn't assembled wrong, it's all lined
Write
up.
a letter, email,
Whatever, we'll close it back up again.
and they don't even have the decency.
There we go, we got the right play in it again. Probably straightened itself out as I was loosening the screws.
Spring 2018.
I don't think it's gonna do well. I don't see it.
The only reason I take this system apart is I am thinking about keeping it.
Old school Atari attraction.
But to be honest, just looking at the internal components isn't going to harm anything. I made sure my hands are nice and clean. Where I live, we don't have any electrostatic discharge issues in any way.
How's it going?
Our climate's too moist.
Pretty good. Did you open those presents?
I got mine tomorrow morning. First thing.
So we'll go ahead and
bright and early, since she opens her eyeballs at
move
5
these
a.m.
screws. Get past that screen there.
I'll see you later.
See you later.
Go ahead
Just
and
have fun with that Nintendo.
Oh well.
very gently shove her back together.
I think I was gonna take that back, Jake.
Okay.
Give this one, man.
Okay. $45.
Can I use the rest of my credits?
What's your phone number?
360-449-2613.
Okay.
Literally all the screws on the internal
469.
and external of this case
Okay, 449.
are the exact same, so if you mix anything up, you're really not actually mixing anything up.
Yeah, I just need $20.
Just got to make sure you use the right screwdriver for the size of screw. They are a size 00.
Jake, I'm just asking, sir. There was no, in general, there's no directions for, is there?
Not that I know.
Okay.
No.
I was just wondering.
As soon as I get this thing crammed back together, that will conclude the teardown. Part that I suspect will be a little difficult is getting that one ribbon cable plugged back in. Nope, I am doing a teardown of the new system.
Right now. Just came out this morning. I waited in line at Walmart with him for 3 hours and they were telling me we were getting a good start.
Really?
Cable was a little annoying to plug back in, but it went in just fine. So we're gonna go ahead and put the screws back.
That Splatoon, and I seen it online the day it was available at Walmart. People were selling it for $500 online.
Yeah, people love that song.
So what? This is just like the old one but smaller,
Yeah, if you
and it takes a different cartridge.
he's almost done putting it back together.
These are a cartridgeless game console.
It doesn't take the cartridge. It just has these set games in it. Okay, I've seen.
And
some
people
of
will probably
these
complain that I didn't take the switches apart.
for Atari.
On the case, I don't see a point.
Made by Atari.
No. Atari did some.
I'm more interested in taking a look at the circuit board and how it's put together, just to see the quality of the components.
It's made
I give it a
by
grade A
Flash.
for quality.
The other one that I'm talking about is
Same type of quality that I would
That's made
expect
by
from
Flash.
Nintendo.
It's not Atari at all.
Yeah, there's no name brand.
And we are back together and ready to stick back in the box.
So like the Sega, they don't have a